Okay, we're going to record it instead. Good morning. Welcome. Today is Sunday and it's our weekly live. What I call I'm just you, Jennifer, because I don't know if you know that your audio is on. So please mute yourself if you're on here. It's very if you want to share something, then you can always raise your hand or just post a comment in the chat and I'll be happy to let you share. But anyway, so I'm excited for today. It's Sunday. It's kind of the last Sunday of January 2024. And, it's an interesting thing. They say like the tone of January starts to set the tone of the whole year. So start to think about how has the tone of this month been for you and what are the themes that are coming up? Something that's interesting is like I've noticed in my life anyway, and in other people's, that you can start out really like ambitious in the beginning of a new year, and if perhaps there are sort of like obstacles that start to arise as well in this early part of the year, it also can start to give a glimpse into kind of more or less what the soul needs to work through at this time in order to make the next breakthrough to rise to the next level. So I really kind of see life as this. I almost say like a video game. I had this vision one time for a video game when I was in Bali, and it was a very interesting vision because I was running in Bali and there's a lot of like obstacles, right? So there's like a pothole and then there would be like a cow or something like, and then like a cat and then crazy stuff like someone on a scooter, so like I realized that we're always like in life have these kind of obstacles, right? So life is a little bit like an obstacle course, but at the same time there are ways that we can amplify our power in order to overcome the obstacles. So if you ever played the video game Super Mario Brothers, for example, this is something when I was a kid, I was kind of addicted to this game. And so what they would do is if you would take the little magic mushroom or the star power, you would get like extra powers, right? So like I think the mushroom let you jump higher and the star let you go like through things without getting hurt and stuff. So there was like all of these interesting sort of messages, I would say, like subliminal messages in this. But the interesting thing that I realized is that we can utilize the same kind of principles in our own real life and get some kind of like amnesty or like protection in life, right? So as we're going through our obstacles, right? So what can we say like star power could be correlated to something such as like, for example, breath work or anything that puts you into a super high vibrational state, because the star power in Super Mario Brothers put him into such a high vibrational state that nothing could touch him. And that was like kind of the magic of that little thing that he would get the stars and then get to the next level. And that's like how I was winning all the time because I was like really good at getting these little extras. So anyway, I think about how we can correlate that into our day to day. So the star power in our yoga training, in the flow state training, we have stuff like breath work. Breath work is one of the best ones because when you do breath work, even if you just do it for a little while, you start to feel your vibration, better your nervous system, relax, and whatever kind of like stress, anxiety, tension, or whatever's going on, it kind of calms that and it brings you back to a good place. So then that good feeling place is like kind of amnesty is what I like to consider as like a protection, that you're like, okay, so nothing can really bother you that much if you're in a really good place. Like if you're in a good place inside of you, then whatever comes up outside of you, you can be more, have a little bit of separation from the self and the thing and be like, okay, that's that. It's a person, they're going through that, or it's not me, right? And you don't have to like take sort of this feeling of I'm like deserve this or something. And instead, it's more or less like, okay, this is happening. And at the same time, my job is to maintain my equanimity and my inner peace. And so if we can do that all the time, it gives us this kind of star power. and that high vibrational state. That's what I like to call flow state. So star power is like flow state. And then the other one, the little mushroom, that was another one too, because it gave him the power to jump really high. So it gave him superpowers, right? So it gave him an ability to do something that he normally wouldn't have been able to do. So it's interesting because in our product line for the flow state product that we did a little soft launch with that last month, but we're getting ready to gear up to do it in a bigger way. And one of the things we're going to be adding to it is different types of ingredients, such as Amanita muscaria, which is a really cool mushroom. It's actually the same mushroom that they used in Super Mario Brothers, the one with the red cap and the white dots. And this is actually a legal mushroom that gives you kind of like superpowers. So what it does is it works with your GABA receptors. So for people who have anxiety, depression, or any kind of like tendency towards these extreme poles of the emotional scale, or if maybe trauma or depression, these things, what happens is it's a imbalance in the chemistries of the brain and the hormones. So as we start to realize that when we work with our hormonal system and the brain chemistry, combining that with the practice of yoga, meditation, and breath work, and other biohacking practices, perhaps like ice baths and things like that, that we can actually start to rewire the neurosynapses in the brain, and that in turn can transform our whole life so that we feel totally different, like regardless, like even if something outside of us is happening that's like really pretty extreme, that we can say, stay calm and be at a distance from it and see it from what I call bird's eye view or eagle vision, where we see the big picture, we see why it's happening. It doesn't necessarily mean that nothing bad ever happens or nothing difficult. Obviously, that's not the case. Like, actually, I think it's the opposite. I think like more and more challenges are always coming because as we get stronger, it's like we tell the universe, I can handle more. And then with like this newfound strength and ability to handle more, the universe is like, oh, okay, I'll just give you more to handle, which is usually like either more challenges or larger obstacles to overcome, or on the other side of it, like more blessings. So it could be both sides of that. So it's a really interesting exploration as we look at life and we're like, okay, what is life sort of like teaching me? What is showing up for me right now in my life? And how can I utilize this almost like that video game mentality where I'm like, okay, I need to overcome the dragon. I need to get above this mountain. I need to gain the strength, that inner power, and reclaim my power so I can rise to the next level. And in video games, I really like how it is actually based on this concept of levels. So then you're actually like, you win this level and then you get to the next level, and it's like life, right? So what is the next level? One of my good friends wrote a book called Level Up, and I love this book because it's such an amazing idea that we're always leveling up. So leveling up is really like getting to the next level. So what does that look like for you or for us, right? So getting to the next level could be anything from, having a breakthrough with your health, your career, with your relationship dynamics, or your finances. It could be creating something that you always dreamed of doing and that you kind of resisted or held back because of fear or doubt or self-confidence issues or whatever, or even resources. Or it could be something, just internally where maybe you're feeling like a certain way, kind of like a stagnant energy or something. And then all of a sudden you have a breakthrough and you're feeling better consistently, and you're like, wow, actually, I used to have this baseline anxiety and it's gone. And I love to hear that when people tell me they do this training or they do my courses or anything like that, or they start a cleanse or they start a meditation practice or something like that. And they say, oh, like it actually transformed me from the inside out because I used to have this baseline anxiety or depression or self-confidence, self-worth issues or financial problems or whatever the problem was. And then as a result of this steady rewiring of the neural synapses and the nutrition that starts to support the production of better hormone balance, better brain chemistry, better the cocktail of happiness, serotonin, dopamine, and these things, that with time, that we actually can be a different person. And they even say that every 7 years, we have a completely different self. So literally, you can be a totally different person in 7 years. And I really believe this because it happens for all of us. But it happened for me a lot because a lot of people always say that I look younger now than I did some like 10 years or even sometimes 20 years ago. And I actually look at pictures and I agree. And I think part of that is because I stopped drinking when I was 21, which is kind of funny. But I stopped drinking when I was 21. And then what happened was I noticed that that was like the starting point, right? So, but like between 21 and 28, for example, was the time when I was like getting new cells, right? So like the old cells were still there, and I had like these old cells that used to like drink a lot, party, stay up late, do, toxic behavior. And then as I was doing the new behavior, which is like yoga, meditation, or any of these things, what happens is you're clearing out the gunk and the toxicity from your cells. So when you do your cleansing, when you do your practices, when you just live a holistic, healthy lifestyle, all of your cells start to reprogram themselves. And the little nucleus of the cell, the center of the cell, what it does is it starts to vibrate at a higher frequency. And also because we have over 70% water in our body, that your body starts to vibrate at a higher frequency. And so I remember one time, one of my friends who knew me when I was like 18, 19, she was like, she could tell after 10 years, she's like, it was like layers had been peeled away from me energetically, and she was able to see my light more. And if you see people who practice real consistently yoga, meditation, and like real healthy wellness, holistic lifestyle, that you'll see this is true. And you can see it even with somebody like Sadhguru, for example. He's like probably almost 70. And he's almost 70, but he's like more kind of like beautiful now. If you see pictures from when he was like 30, he was cool, like, but like he looked like more of like a normal man. And now he looks like a radiant being of light, if you ever see him. So it's a very interesting thing where you can do this for yourself and you can do this for your clients. And that's really what we're doing. I mean, flow state is such a beautiful path because there's so many things you're doing for people and for yourself. You're reprogramming your cellular DNA, you're reprogramming your neural network to rewire and refire to a better brain chemistry, and hopefully like rewiring and refiring and deprogramming all of the traumas and the old beliefs and the old self-identity. And the self-identity is such an interesting thing. Like if you think back on who you thought you were 10 years ago, and then who you are now, and then think to the future, who you can become, it's limitless and it's really exciting. So you can think like, okay, so nothing about you or who you are is stagnant. You're not stagnant, and there's no reason to feel that you can't transform at every moment. I actually feel my life path, which is very challenging, but it's a constant transformation. So it's like the phoenix is always in the fire. And as a result of that, now I'm kind of comfortable in the fire. It's not really like, not easy, but I'm comfortable in the sense that I'm used to it. But it's like I'm always shedding stuff. So it's like when you get into this sort of observation of your life and you're like, okay, like level up, level up, level up is like a constant, never-ending experience of life. So if you can recognize that for yourself and you can get into a path where you feel good with that and you're like, okay, I'm ready for this, I'm going to take this on as if I chose it because I did, that when you go to work with other people and you can kind of recognize where they're at in the journey, and then you're like, okay, so if they're a client or something, like I had this client I saw recently, and when I went there, he's like an investment banker. When I went there, his brain was so foggy, he could hardly have a good conversation with me. And I just could feel it. It was really difficult for me to deal with that. So I proposed to do a cleanse. So we did a 6-day fast, basically liquid fast, which went really well. By the end of it, he was like absolutely transformed, which I thought was obviously what always happens. So I wasn't that shocked or anything. it was amazing. Like by the end, his mental clarity was so beyond, his like energy was through the roof. And it really goes to show and confirm and emphasize the power and importance of the practices that we teach within the Flow State Institute. So when you're working with people and you have this like variety of kind of gifts or what I call a toolkit to work with, and you go to them, the mastery of this path is to become so good at knowing what somebody needs is that you can help them pretty much right away with your gifts that you have. That's a really good coach. A really good coach is somebody who can kind of like assess where somebody's at and be like, this is what you need, and like ultimately you get better and better with over time to do that. But the best way to really learn how to do that is to start with doing it with yourself and like really being like, what do I need right now? Like, oh, actually, what I need is to move my body, or what I need to do is stillness. I need to tune in and ask myself some questions and get like in touch with my womb wisdom or my higher guidance or my instinct or my intuition or my heart or like my greater vision or so like really tuning in to yourself is kind of the first step. So that's something I want to do today with you guys if you're into it. Post a comment if you're into that idea. I feel like it's something that's really been such a blessing in my life is to learn how to tune in to this inner voice. And it's funny because the inner voice does different things. It comes in this sort of sensation of a feeling. So it can be a feeling where it's like, we'll say like, um, your whole body either feels really good, we call that a full body yes, or the full body feels really bad. So we call that a full body no. So we have this like instinctive messaging system that's always speaking to us. And if we tune in, if we get really good at tuning in, like the key element, like the most important part is that we learn to listen. And not just listen, but take action on what we get as a message, right? So like if we get this message, like this has happened so much for me that I'm like, I have to tell people how important this is, that you get the message. And if you don't obey the guidance, you always, always suffer. So this is like the number one rule. Like, it's one thing to get the message, but it's another thing to obey the message. Now, some people never even get the memo. It's like, oh, I didn't even know. Like, but usually the memo comes, they're just not like tuned in enough, not tuned into the subtlety or to be able to listen to that voice or that feeling because they're so like distracted or caught up in the world or, busy or whatever the thing. But like just utilizing your meditation practice as a time to tune in is one of the most valuable uses of meditation. I mean, there's so many ways that you can use the meditation time and practice to serve you and to transform your life. But this alone, what we're going to do, I'll do it with you if you want. This alone is, without any other thing, the most valuable thing that you can ever learn. Because what I learned is when I didn't listen, like I said, so when you don't listen to that guidance, first off, you don't even hear the guidance because you're not even tuned in. That's a problem. But then secondly, usually you get the guidance somehow anyway, here or there in a message of some sort. If you don't listen, you will always, always suffer and you will always look back and regret it because you'll be like kicking yourself, being like, I knew and I didn't listen. Let me see. I got a lot of comments coming. Let's look what it says. Absolutely. I love listening within. It is the best guidance when you can truly listen. Amen. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what my healing circle was all about yesterday. Everything we need is inside of us. Oh, beautiful, Sabrina. Yes, for sure, right. Our life will implode before us if we don't move as we should. Been there. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. So let's do a little practice. Now, one of the things that I always like to, my favorite way of doing it is asking yes, no questions. If you ask a yes, no question, you can get a clear answer. If you ask an open-ended like essay question, it will like almost never be clear because you'll get a like essay and you'll be like, what is it saying? Like really, like is it yes or no? Really, all you really want is a yes or no. So you have to get better at asking yes or no questions, like direct. No, don't beat around the bush. Just ask. And you're asking your guidance of your higher self. So it's like, Nobody's lying to anybody here. It's just truth on truth. So it's a really good thing. Now, here's the other part of it that I really want to emphasize. You can ask a question, and then if you get a feeling, ask it again in a different way, and ask it again in another way too. So you want to try to hit it from different angles just to make sure. The reason I'm saying that is sometimes what I've found is your mind is so strong and powerful that it can kind of influence the feeling. So like for example, if you want it to be a yes, and you're like asking this question, and then and like you want it to be a yes. So the positive like energy about that wanting or desire, that intention can sometimes influence it to feel a little bit like a yes. Now, the true yes is always a full body, undeniable yes. Whereas the false yes might be something more of like a maybe, might be like a weak yes. So this is where we have to be really tuned into the subtlety. And then the no, same thing. So sometimes no feels like subtle, maybe yes, maybe no. It could be feel like a maybe. But the true no, it's like a full no. It's like no energy, no sensation, or even the opposite, like negative, like bad feeling, like feeling bad, feeling constricted, feeling your heart closes up, feeling like it's a no. Versus the yes, which feels like full body, like everything, like your mind is like, whoa, and like your heart is like, yeah, and then like your whole head feels like all this tingly energy, and you're like, this is a yes. So this is like the important part, is to know how to read the signs, right? To read the messages. Because if we're kind of like, is it yes or no? And you're like trying to hear a word, like source or God or like higher self does not actually speak to us in words that often. Now, sometimes it does. Like I get a lot of words, but I get a lot of visuals too. So I get these words, I get these visuals, but the most trusted way is the feeling, the sensations that we get. And the best way to test it was the yes, no questions. Who agrees with this? Do you guys want to do it? Do you want to do it as a practice? Leave a comment and let me know. We're going to do it together. So you want to think about, Jennifer says completely. Oh, good. You want to think about a question that you have. And you could even write a few questions. Could be something, a couple things that you've been wondering about, something that you're working on, a person, a choice. For me, it's a lot of times choice making. This is where I really do this practice. I'm like, okay, I need to make some decisions. And instead of, I know some people who do like rational decision making where they write pros and cons. I suck at that. Like I always have almost equal amount of pros and cons, because if you're in your mind you're undecided, it means there are equal amount of pros and cons pretty much. And if they're not exactly equal, they're kind of close. And if they're kind of close, it usually means that you can't decide. That's why you're having a hard time with the decision, right? That's why you need to tune in. So this is where we go to this practice. Not always just for indecision. I mean, it could be for anything. It could be at any moment. Like if you're like at a stoplight, tune in. But ultimately, this is the best use of this. So asking yourself the question. So let's say, for example, I'm in the process of determining if like this one partner is a good partner for us for the Maui retreat. And so I have two partners for that, but like one of them feels like not stable. And I'm like, okay, so in the past, what happened was I sometimes would move forward with people even if they weren't a good fit. Like even if my knowing was like they're unstable, it doesn't feel full on, they don't feel up at the same level or whatever the thing. So, but I would still be like talk myself into it because I was trying to make decisions with rational mind, rational thinking. So instead of that, I'm like, okay, in the past, when I did that, generally for me, maybe this is different for other people, but generally for me, a spiritual person, that if I did it that way, it didn't work out well because the intuitive guidance, if the intuitive guidance is a no, and the feeling is the no, and then you go, but rationally it makes sense on paper, it all makes sense, and then you go with the yes, never works out. So This is how we communicate with our soul to make decisions, with our soul to be in alignment with our higher self and our destiny. And even if our mind thinks that we have this destiny with something or someone because it all seems to make sense somehow, it can be an illusion or a delusion. And so we have to always check in. The first thing is you got to get what is the question? Does anybody here have a question that you're thinking of in your heart that you're like, yeah, I do want to have this question. I have something that I've been wanting to ask myself, or that I've been wanting more guidance, clarity, confirmation to make the decision or to make the choice or to take the action. If you have something like that, leave a comment. You don't have to share what it is. You can if you want, but leave a comment just to let everybody know. Now, once you have the clarity of what that question is, I'll give you an example. Here's a good example. Let's call this person Bob. I'm not going to use the real name. So if I ask myself, is it in the highest and best interest of everyone involved for Bob to be the partner in this Maui retreat? Let's say, because he's supposed to be the investor. We'll say if he's supposed to be the investor. So there could be two different questions with that. One of them is, is it the highest and best for everyone involved for Bob to be the investor? That's question one. And then question two is it in the highest and best for all involved for Bob to be a partner, which could be different than an investor? And then the third question could be, is it in the highest and best interest for everyone involved for Bob to be involved at all? Right? So that's a third question. So you see how asking it in different ways can help, because sometimes that maybe they're not meant to be the investor, but maybe they could still be in partner or they could still be involved. Who knows? Like you want to just get clarity. Let's see. Sabrina says, yes, I'm in the process of making a decision to work with an Oriental doctor to lead a Kundalini awakening circle in April. I did one of her smaller circles before. I'm on the fence and collaborating with her. Oh, okay. That's a great one. See, I love this kind of one because what it does is, first of all, the decision is important. So that's usually like, for me, the easiest. If there's a decision to be made, yes and no helps a lot. And then secondly, there's a person involved. And so you can ask it so specifically. She can ask about this specific person. And then she even says, to lead a circle in April. So it's even a specific date. So that's a great one because it's so specific. If it's kind of more general, it still is really, we can tune in and we can ask it, but when it's really specific, it's even easier, I think. Okay, that's a great one, Sabrina. So let's give it a try. We're going to do it together. How I like to do, I start out like this. I take a deep breath, hold the breath, hold it for 30 seconds. After the 30 seconds, you let go of the breath. You should feel like more clear, more open in your heart and more little tingly. But okay, so that just clears the energy. You could do that a few times. Sometimes I'll do 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you can do up to 10 if you feel like you need a lot more clearing. So we'll do 3. Now, instead of holding this time, we're just going to exhale slowly. Shh. Inhale. One more. Okay, now you're tuned in. Close your eyes and just get subtle eyes, get subtle in your body, and ask the question. So you could just ask it internally, silently, but ask the question in a form of a yes/no type of thing. Just like her question. Am I supposed to do this partnership with this doctor for this event in April? Whatever. And then say, am I supposed to? So you have a yes or no is going to be the answer. Now the yes is going to be a lot of like beautiful energy in your head and your heart and your mind is going to feel really clear and open and positive. And no is going to feel either nothing or negative energy. It's going to feel closed. A maybe is like in the middle. Maybe means you need to ask it a couple different times in different ways. Okay, let's do it. I usually breathe in between each, if I'm asking multiple questions, take a deep breath and clear the energy in between. It's kind of like resetting. You don't confuse the first answer with the second one. Okay, now let's come back and regroup. So leave a comment if you guys did it. Sabrina, did you ask the question? Because you were the only one so far that shared your thoughts on what you want to ask. Did you ask the question and did you get an answer? Wow, she said yes, and I got a hard yes. Amazing. Anybody else get one where you were like, okay, this is the vibe, like what we're going with, and you felt it? They felt strong one way or the other? Who else did it? I did it. Now it was interesting because I did it this morning before this live stream, and I actually was doing it with the same question that I was doing it now because I wanted to test it. Like, okay, is it gonna get the same answer? So it gave me a similar answer, but it also asked a new question. So I threw a new question in the mix, and that question gave me a new option, even. So I thought that was interesting, that it actually transformed it a bit as I got more clarity and asked in new ways. Let's see. Jennifer said, I did, and I got great clarity. It was an interesting answer, two-part. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love it. Isn't this fun? So, like, the cool thing about it is the more you get good at this, it's like life is so much better because then you're never like, I mean, hopefully you listen every time. That's the key, like I said. And then you're never going to be kicking yourself because you're always just intuitively, divinely guided by your soul. And if you can do that every single day of your life, like you will never suffer again. Literally. And also get really good at figuring out which questions you need to ask. Because as you think about life, right, like life is always giving us a lot of choices to make, a lot of decisions, a lot of opportunities, a lot of things coming along. And if we don't tune in about all of them, or at least the ones that are like priority or important, that we actually will suffer because we're just kind of like blindly bumping through life trying to figure out what to do along the way. So this is like that beautiful way of like it's almost like having a compass that you carry with you. And you like say, let's say you're a captain sailing a ship across the ocean. You are captain of your ship and you're sailing your ship across the ocean of your life, the ocean of existence. And so this is your compass, that internal guidance system. And I usually have, there's another way that I work with this as well, which is tuning into what I call your North Star. So your North Star is your destiny or your purpose of life. And like when you know what that is, or at least a general sense of it, then it guides you as well. So it's like you want to combine this practice that we're doing right now with the North Star checkpoint. So that North Star checkpoint is basically like when you know that your destiny is to create something specifically, like let's say for myself, I know one day if it's not this Maui retreat, I know one day I'm going to have my own retreat center because I've been leading retreats for like 20 years and I've always wanted to have my own retreat center. And it's something that I know I'm going to do. It's just a matter of the right timing, the right people, the right situation. To me, that's way more important than having it right now. Because in the past, when I wanted something right now, instead of in divine timing, I always ended up suffering with that. So Here I look at it instead of like, is it, is it my destiny, more or less? Is this the timing and are these the people, right? Is this the location? Is this it? I know it's going to happen. So if you already know in your heart, like for example, with Sabrina, she's going to create beautiful things with different people and bring healing and wellness, and she's going to be doing that. So the question is this the person? Is this the timing? Versus, am I supposed to be doing this at all? But if you're at that stage where you're wondering, am I supposed to be doing this at all? That's a good too. Like, that's okay. Because you want to ask those questions. Like, if you're not clear yet, what is your North Star? You have to ask those questions to get that clarity as well. So if you're like, I don't know what my North Star is yet, then you kind of want to tune into that. Like, what is my purpose of life? And you could do this same guidance practice, intuitive listening, to find your purpose of life. So you could ask yourself the same thing, or you could use this practice with your clients and you could say, okay, let's find your purpose of life. So if they're like, okay, they're deciding, they're thinking it could be this, it could be this, they're not sure. Let's say you kind of think it could be a few different things, you're not sure. Maybe someone's like thinking about going to school for real estate, but then I'm also really drawn to yoga. And then I'm really drawn also to being an accountant. That was me in college. I wanted to do all these different things. And so it was really hard because I couldn't decide. But when I got deeply, deeply tuned in with what I felt was important to me and I asked certain questions, then the answers were clear. Then it wasn't, should I be a real estate agent or a yoga teacher? The answer was, I'm here to serve and, raise consciousness on the earth, and starting with the path of teaching yoga, but expanding that to many avenues, which can include real estate, because I've been teaching retreats at some of the top properties in the world for 20 years. And before that, I was a real estate person. So it's funny that if you think about it, that we have this soul guidance that brings us to these sort of desires or interests. And sometimes they feel very unrelated, but later it can feel actually that they were very much needed, both of them related later on. So that's what I'm trying to describe. So like, for example, having my own retreat center is a natural thing that will happen in my path because I started as a realtor and then I became a yoga teacher that led retreats around the world. So then the third step of that is having my own retreat center and bringing this gift to others to be able to hold space for them to hold retreats. So it's kind of like the path starts to make more sense as you go further down the path. So that's what we call following that divine guidance, the North Star, and that intuitive asking will help along the way to make sure that we don't get too far off the path. That happened to me a number of times where I kind of got distracted. I thought, oh, maybe I'm going to do this thing. Maybe I'm going to do this thing. Started kind of going off the path. And I realized, what am I doing that for? So I actually now make it a priority to tune in and ask this intuitive guidance. I call it womb wisdom as well, although men can do it too. But women have an even stronger intuitive guidance system within because we have this womb wisdom. So womb wisdom, other people call it gut instinct, and some people call it intuition, intuitive guidance, checking in, whatever you want to call it. But it's the same. Let's see. Richard says, having multiple experiences with moving to Maui, the unknown factor might be what is called rock fever. When involving others in your plans without a warning, these other folks might need to move away from Hawaii. It's not, yeah, I agree with that, but it's not so much even just rock fever. It's really about the integrity of the individuals and whether or not they're going to be like full on, because I'm like a loyal 100% full on type of person. And when I see people that are like passive and kind of like half in, that energy of passive half in is a no to me. It feels like it's not going to work because I'm so full on. I don't want people that are passive or half in. Sabrina says, I am so excited for your retreat center. I too want to do that one day. I have had a dream of working with you for a decade now, so I am following divine guidance for sure. Oh, that's so beautiful. This is perfect timing to work with you. As before, I was still in a toxic marriage. It's interesting how sometimes we get a no and then a yes later on. Oh, I love that. Yeah, because the no now can mean just no now, meaning timing isn't right. I'll give you an example. One of my best friends, his name is Michael Capone. He's like interesting, amazing guy. He's like this guy. He created this charity that brings relief aid to disaster victims around the world. He's got like $200 million a year bringing like things to people that need it when they're in earthquakes, floods, the war, all the things. And it's wonderful. I've worked with him for so many years. But it's funny, when we first met, I had this strong knowing that I was supposed to connect with him, right? And this was like 2011 or something. And then in 2011, I was like, I'm supposed to connect to this guy. So I ended up going to his party. And back then, he used to throw these like big parties in South Beach. Like he was like a nightclub promoter. He was doing a totally different thing. And he was like doing these big parties. He was like Mr. like all these girls kind of guy. And then anyway, so I wasn't thinking he would be like a partner, like romantically, but I was just drawn to him for some reason. I felt like me and him were supposed to connect. And so, funny enough, we ended up connecting when I moved to South Beach, and we ended up connecting more. And and we tried to have a romantic relationship for like a very short time, like 2 weeks, and it just was a no. It was such a no that I was like, oh God, like why was I so drawn to this person when it was just such a no? And it was just so clearly a no. So I was like, okay. Because I'm such a very sensitive person. He's like not, at all. So it's like interesting. So so anyway, what happened was I kind of let it go a bit, but we stayed friends. And we still ended up doing like this philanthropy together. And I went down to Haiti with him to teach yoga and meditation to the families that he takes care of that lost their homes in the earthquake. And I went to California and I helped and I taught meditation and yoga to the people there that lost their homes in the fire. I went to Maui as well. And we also helped with the families that lost their homes in the fire. And so it was like this unusual thing that became this beautiful friendship that has now lasted for 13 years. And it's like one of my special friendships that I love, and that I feel like we do have a destiny together, and that we do work together in such a good way, in an interesting way, and bringing light to the world, and that we have a mutual respect that's very beautiful. And um, and so I love that. And it's interesting how you can transmute a dynamic with somebody that doesn't work in one way into a new way. So like what Sabrina just described, even where she was in this marriage, like sometimes the marriage is toxic, but there was always a reason why you got married. There was love there. And so it's interesting. I've seen time and again people who were able to heal and then transmute that toxic marriage energy into a friendship, into a deep love that's not romantic, but that's appreciative of the journey that you shared for the 10 years, and recognize that this completion that you get at the end of that hard, long journey made you so much stronger, and it leveled you up, and it brought you to a new level of self-love, and it taught you what you do want, taught you what you didn't want, and that path that you took together, even if it was like what you could consider toxic, but it's actually just removing that word from it, just looking at it from the perspective of it was causing you to grow. And that's like the most basic way of seeing it, that there was deep growth, and that from that deep growth, always, always, always blessings can come, and clarity, and evolution, and then eventually expansion to your greater purpose of life. And that approach to seeing it in that way is such a wonderful thing, because then you don't feel bad about it. You're no longer like, fuck him. You're more like, thank you. Thank you for being that catalyst for growth, even if it was horribly painful. And I've had a lot of that experience myself with different partnerships. And it's like, oh my God, why did I even go there? But it's like the soul wants to go there because it wants to grow, and it can't necessarily let go until you've learned the lesson, at least, or at least you have some sort of like progress towards the lesson. And then if you let go, then hopefully you can get the lesson. But at some point you got to get the lesson. Otherwise, you're going to stay connected. Sabrina says, toxic codependency. I am hoping his heart softens soon. It did make me grow for sure. Thank you for that. Change the narrative. Yeah, changing the narrative is like the number one thing. Like I have had to do that for everything in my life. Like I had so many challenges, like even from a childhood, you know, And it's funny because for those of you who don't know, this Richard Gordon person in our group is actually my father. And he is like always trying to be a part of what I do. And I really appreciate that about him and you, Dad, if you're listening. And because ultimately, I still look back on my childhood with like, I'm like, man, I know people that have like a beautiful family. And for us, it wasn't at all. It was difficult and I didn't grow up with my family and my parents. And so it was like what caused me to have the most suffering mostly was this like toxic childhood family dynamic with my mother and father. So as I grew older and I've learned to heal from all of that, it's an interesting exploration of like, okay, how do you have a relationship with this person that you look back on it, you kind of see them that they were like the catalyst for the deepest pain or something, you know? And so it's been a deep maturity to be like, okay, like he's just a person too, trying to figure himself out. And I can be grateful that he brought me into this world. I can be grateful for the good things that he did do, you know, and I can focus on those. And that's called silver lining thinking, thinking of the silver lining and really being grateful for everything. And even when something's like terribly painful, finding something to be grateful about it. Be like, I'm grateful for this part of it, even if it was a small part, but it's like, okay, I'm going to make that small part the big part, and I'm going to make that small part the bigger part of my memory. That's when what Sabrina just said, changing the narrative. So when you look back on it, you go, oh, actually, I chose that on a soul level. We all chose that for whatever reason. And as a result of that, I am who I am. Now, here's the part of that that's important. I am who I am, not because of him, that something that he did that was shaping me, but that because of the strength of my soul to rise out of the ashes of destructive energy, toxic environments, and to choose to see it from the silver lining perspective and say, okay, I can see why this happened. I'm grateful for the blessings that came from that. I'm grateful for the strength that I gained from that. I'm grateful for my soul and God who brought me through the fire to a higher vision for myself and for the angels that showed up along the path that were there for me when I didn't have a family, you know? And that is actually what expanded my capacity to feel love for humanity because I was raised by a lot of strangers. So I was raised by many different families. So it made me see that humanity is one big family because my very small nuclear family wasn't there. So I had to expand my understanding of what family even means to this greater capacity to hold space for all of humanity and also to see, okay, most of humanity is quite toxic. Most of humanity needs a lot of healing. So that was the driving force that led me to become who I am because it was a driving catalyst motivator to bring healing to the world. I have friends that have very healthy, loving families, and they just don't have much motivation to help the world because they're like content. And not to say that wouldn't be nice. I would have enjoyed and been happy with that. But for some reason, my soul didn't choose that because my soul wanted to come to this world to change the world and to awaken humanity and to help people heal. And if I would have had that easy, cushy life and been the princess child, I might have not cared as much about the world. I might not have been driven to impact 100 million people and to bring healing to the world in the way that I am. And I'm excited now. This year, I got a new partnership with Gaia TV. I think I told some of you. We're going to be launching the Flow State teacher training online with their community. There's like they have 1 million subscribers there. And also, they are going to be promoting my retreats, which I'm excited about. The other thing is I have a friend that is a producer for Paramount TV, and she's going to feature me in her show, and also maybe even co-create a TV show together. So I've been really sitting with that because these are some of the biggest dreams that I had in my life, and I always thought they will happen. And I was like, 10 years ago, I moved to LA, actually more than 10 years ago, 2010. So 14 years ago, I moved to LA because I had this big dream of having a TV show. And then I traveled the world for 14 years, leading retreats and teacher trainings and speaking and doing events and all this, and writing my books and creating online courses. And I did all these things. But in the back of my heart, I always still wanted to do these dreams, the retreat center and the TV show and this movie I want to do. I have all these big dreams. So anyway, just recently, a lot of those things started kind of coming back around. And it was like, now is the time again. And it's interesting to think that we have our idea of timing, and then there's divine timing, divine order. And it's part of the universal law, I believe, is to understand this divine timing, divine order. And when I say divine order, it's really speaking to what I just shared a moment ago, like about my childhood and how if I look back on it for years, it made me really sad and I suffered a lot thinking about that. But the truth was that if I look back on it, it was in divine order because now, even if I passed away at this moment, I still left a really nice mark on the world. But I'm so young, I'm going to make a huge remark. So you can apply this to your life too. You can look at that and you can say, whatever I've done till now is great, but what I'm going to do moving forward is going to change the world in some way, even if it's just in my community, my family. But if you want to, you can change the lives of thousands or millions of people, and it's your choice. So it's like, at what level do you want to take the ashes from the fire that you burned in and transform them into fertilizer for the soil that you plant the seeds for the future gardens that you'll grow and the orchards and the fruit trees and the flowers that will blossom from the fertile soil of the destruction from all the pain, from all the suffering, and to turn it into blessings and gifts for the world. And the way that we do that is first forgiving it, loving it, seeing the silver lining, thanking it, and then taking the wisdom from it and applying it to help others. And then finding your path of greatest joy to do that. Whether your path of greatest joy is one-on-one coaching, could be in group sessions, could be leading retreats, could be creating online courses, whatever your path of greatest joy is going to be to deliver your message or to help people in your unique way is up to you. And you can use the practice that we did today to allow yourself to be divinely guided to see what is my path of greatest joy and what is the message I'm here to deliver and what is my highest purpose, my North Star here in this life. And then those questions leading to your destiny. And as we tune in every day, that's why I really love teaching meditation and yoga, is because you're literally teaching people how to like not suffer, not only because it helps you calm your mind, but because it helps you avoid making the wrong choices and setting yourself back and going off course. And so this is truly one of the gifts that you can give your clients, give your friends, give yourself, and do it every day if you can. Take the time. You could even do it while you're in the bath or something, but a really good timing is when you're meditating. You could even do it when you're laying down in the morning or in the evening. But just remember to do it and tune in with yourself and listen and be that guidance for yourself. And let me know how it goes. You guys have any questions for today? We're going to be wrapping up in just a few moments. Love to give you an opportunity to ask anything, share anything. You could also unmute yourself if you want. Let me know. By the way, because it's morning, this is what I drink usually a lot of times in the morning. Lemon water, warm lemon water with a little bit of pink sea salt. The sea salt has all the minerals. So this is a nice way of getting your sodium, your potassium, magnesium, all of that in the morning so that you can be more hydrated throughout the day. So, little hack. And also, we're going to be doing a lot more with the flow state supplements pretty soon. I have some friends that are going to be working with me on that. So I'll give you more updates about that pretty soon. Sabrina has a question. Yeah, unmute. What's going on?
Hi, good morning. So I had that healing circle yesterday. I wanted to pick your brain just for a second about how you would handle it. Was a small, intimate circle, but I had one woman who was like really disruptive and like on her phone and just not mindful at all. And I kind of ignored it, but because it made me uncomfortable and I've never had that happen before in such a small, intimate setting. Most people are really mindful.
He was on the phone in your Reiki circle?
Yeah, it
Oh,
was it was very strange. It was very, very strange. And like I kept focus and attention and just ignored it. So the other women in the circle, their attention was on me. So I figured if I just kept in that space that it wouldn't be disruptive. But I mean, it disrupted me, so I imagine it probably disrupted them. But I didn't know how to mindfully say something without interfering the entire feeling of the circle.
oh, well, okay. So two things. I would start first with before the circle, make sure that you just have like a basket at the door that you just like, everyone leaves the phone here. We don't do phones at all near the circle.
Okay.
So that's the step that you didn't do.
Yes.
Okay, next time. And since you're already like it's the next day, like it's okay. You don't need to go back and think what you would do. I would just do this other approach from now on.
Okay.
But if it never happened again, which it shouldn't if you do that. There is a way to do it, like where you can kind of just, I'm very direct with people. Like I
Okay.
just look at somebody, I'll be like, due to the nature of this being in an energy circle, it's really important that we don't have any phones. Specifically, there's a lot of EMFs in that, so that disturbs the frequency of the energy, but also we want everybody to be focused on what we're doing. So you could say it in a nice way like that, and they will most likely put it away. But
Okay.
I would just have a very clear boundary in the beginning and make sure that leave it at the door.
That's a really good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Um, Last week, did you guys do the one-on-one? I missed last week.
We did, and I posted the replay in the WhatsApp group and also in the Facebook group.
I
So it
couldn't.
was live on Facebook. It was a Facebook live actually because I streamed it.
Oh,
Today I'm gonna upload it to YouTube. Yesterday, I don't know why something's wrong with my account. It's not allowing me to upload to YouTube. So or like stream to YouTube at this moment. So I'm gonna see what's going on with that. But I'm gonna upload it today to YouTube for the replay. But
okay.
next week the replay is in the group, WhatsApp and in the chat.
Okay. The link I tried to click on last week wouldn't work, so I'll relook for it.
Oh yeah. Let me know because I did I saw some people say that too, and then I think I changed it. It should work now.
Okay.
Oh, and then I think I also, if I remember correctly, I might have uploaded it to YouTube as well, just to if not, I'll share it again. But anyway, because
Okay.
I hear some other people had said they had a hard time clicking. I never usually stream to Facebook for that reason. It's not a very good shareable link. But anyway, that's why I always do to YouTube. But I'll try to work with it. But last week it was just Jennifer and I, and she, because I changed the timing and everyone got confused. But she actually, it was a really good one. She was sharing about her entire experience with this, that she just completed the training and graduated, and it was a really good one. Just this like beautiful conversation about this journey that she went through. And I think it's very valuable for those of you who didn't see it yet. I would encourage, mainly because also she's both, you can see people, everyone from two lenses, right? You can see them as a lens, like they're doing the training as well, but then also as a lens of, if she was your client, this could be the type of response that you could get from a client, like this type of like transformational experience, this type of healing, and you want to aim for that. Like if somebody comes to you as a client and they're dealing with all these things, and she shared like what she felt were the most valuable practices that really healed some deep traumas and stuff. So this is like really great feedback to hear, and you can really learn in that way how to help people better. So it is a good one to watch. I'll try to
Okay.
find the link. If you're not able to access that, let me know in the WhatsApp group, or you're in the WhatsApp group, right?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Well, are you in WhatsApp with us at all?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the WhatsApp number if you
Okay.
can. Just like if you can, just send me a message. I'll add you to the group. It's just 561-445-2145. I put it here in the chat, and +1. But I'll add you to the WhatsApp group. That's where we a lot of times post like replays, links, but also in the Facebook group. So I have these two kind of like communication. I used to try to do it in the app, but a lot of people didn't tune into the app to find it. So I was like, okay, we're gonna put it in more places so that people can find it. So
Okay.
Great questions. Thank you all for your beautiful energy and your great input today. Hopefully this was helpful. I know for some of you, you already do this, maybe different versions of this tuning in, but I think that the more that we emphasize the power of this and like keep doing it and do it like regularly for ourselves, for clients, it's really a unique tool to prevent suffering in a very powerful way, prevent going off track and making wrong decisions. And it's funny as I look back over my life, like almost every time like I regret anything, it was because I didn't listen to intuition. I did the wrong decision and then I regretted it later. And I don't like the word regret, but it is an accurate term because what it really means is you knew what you should have done and you did the opposite. And so what we need to always do is just do what we know we should do. I love you all. Have a blessed day, and I sending you so much love. I'll see you next week. Namaste.